Welcome to Creativity, the podcast where art and engineering collide. In this podcast, Max Maker and I, Jeremy S. Cook, discuss our creative endeavors from life, engineering, and just everything in general. Today we have a great guest today. His name is John Davis.
Hello.
Now, John works in industrial controls, industrial sales, and engineering, and he also has created a couple products that kind of bridge the gap between, I guess, the maker world and the industrial world. Would that be a fair description of you, John?
I would say so. That works out pretty well.
Great. Now, before we get started, Max, do we have a special announcement today too?
Yeah, hi. We got an announcement actually. We created a Patreon page and we have our first Patreon, who is Stephen Booker. So thank you very much for your support. And if you out there want to support us as well, just go on patreon.com and search for the Creativity Podcast or follow the link in the show notes. And your support is really appreciated. And let's get on with the show now.
Right. So anyway, John, we had a little introduction to yourself, but, first of all, how are you doing? And then what do you do on a day-to-day basis, I guess?
Oh, man. Well, there goes the hour for the podcast, right? Trying to describe what I do. Well, I'm doing well, thank you. Like I said in the intro, I'm currently in a very small hotel in the middle of nowhere. So hopefully my internet connection stays up here. But so obviously I travel a lot for my day-to-day of what I do. But to put it into a nutshell, I'm involved in two companies. One is the sales and engineering of industrial automation components. So we work with companies big and small, from the biggest to the smallest, helping them to automate their manufacturing process. Companies here in the United States help them to automate their manufacturing process, and generally try to stay up to date on 21st century manufacturing. On the other side, we're also developing a product that you had mentioned it before in the intro. I guess the right term for it is pro maker or industrial maker. Those are the two terms I've heard. Basically taking product that allows you to use hobbyist type stuff in industrial environments to do whatever you want to do.
Right. Yeah, it's very interesting. So what, as far as I guess the industrial side of things is probably where you make your money. Is that correct? Kind of your bigger part of the company. Is that a
Yes,
correct
sir.
statement?
Yep, correct.
So I guess the, in this world, you think, okay, microcontrollers like Raspberry Pi, Arduino, whatever. Now, what do you see as far as what runs these giant assembly lines? Is it, what kind of products do you sell?
I bet it's Siemens.
Oh,
well,
he throws down the gauntlet.
he doesn't live in Germany. It's not Bosch or Siemens here. It's probably starts with an A, I think, right?
Yes. Oh, it is the great American manufacturing company, Allen Bradley, for sure. So yeah, you're both right. So what we see is so very specialized type of equipment, typically called PLCs or programmable logic controllers. And think of them like they're an embedded specialty real-time hardware device, essentially. That they're pretty powerful. And they program using a language called ladder logic. So imagine an old relay diagram. That's where ladder logic came from. That never really went away. And you just make your relay logic now in a modern graphical interface. You upload it to the PLC, and you're off to the races, essentially. So we get involved with that. We don't sell PLCs. To get into the niche of the niche that we deal with, we're mechatronics representatives. So we do a lot with servo motors, big servo motors. Variable frequency drives, mechanical components that translate rotary motion to linear motion, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a whole different world there. It's funny, when I got out of college, I first learned how to program a PLC, and I thought that was really, really strange compared to what I've been taught in college as far as like line by line programming. But then you get used to it, and it's like, this is, it's really, really spectacular the way it works once you really understand it, I guess. And I think there's a big gap between the two worlds, I guess, between even computer programmers and controls engineers, I guess you might say, and then you got the makers, and maybe you'd call them maker pros or whatever else, that say, okay, what can I do with my Raspberry Pi or my Arduino? Why can't I use this to run a assembly line or something, I guess.
Yeah, I got across these PLCs. I believe I have some in my heating system in my house from Siemens, for example. And at work, I came across them, but they just seemed so complicated to me, and it's so difficult to even get a grasp of which one I should get. There's such a big variety of inputs and outputs you can get. So the first thing I had when I had a project where you need a little microcontroller, I just took an Arduino, and that was completely unknown to my company. Everybody was like, "What is this? How did you do this with like in a week with just $100?"
Sure. Oh yeah. Well, and I think part of it is rightfully earned, but also there's some mystique around them too, and definitely a lot of we've always done it this way, so we should do it this way. But there is something to be said about, I think companies, when they spend a couple $1,000,000 on a machine or a process, if they're spending $10 on an Arduino, they're probably thinking, wait a minute, maybe this isn't the right choice. We need to spend money on this thing. But that's not always the case. It's definitely not always the case.
Sure. Now I think, coming from a industrial background myself, I guess because before I started, doing what I do, this kind of thing full time, in my mind, I was always very skeptical of using a Raspberry Pi or an Arduino as a primary control method for a machine. But, we did see, one of my colleagues, actually we had him on the show one time, Alex, Alex Wilson, he started using a Raspberry Pi to do error tracking on one of our machines. And I thought that was really, really cool. And I think your other business, I believe it's called 3ML, is involved in that very, very heavily, correct?
Correct. Yeah. And like anything, I think it's a purpose built type of thing. To be honest, if you have a life critical situation or a safety situation, or even something where the process is a lot of money, just from a liability standpoint, there's something comforting about using a product made by a giant company like Siemens or by Allen Bradley or ABB or somebody like that. So if something does go wrong, you can always point the finger at them instead of everybody pointing their finger at you. But it's all the other stuff that goes along with it. PLCs are very good at doing real-time control of large, complicated systems, especially if it's life critical or safety critical. What they're not good at doing is being flexible, talking to the internet securely and easily, gathering data, all kinds of stuff like that, the little ancillary things.
Yeah, but so is Arduino.
Oh, Arduino's perfect for that. Well, you mean Arduino's not easy to make it do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess it depends on your experience, right? All of us here, I think, have a lot of experience with Arduino. We could probably figure out a way to make it work. Or if you told me to make a PLC talk to the internet, I'm not sure that I could do that. Or you'd want me to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But now your product actually, it's the 3ML product. It actually takes a Raspberry Pi and puts it into industrial style setting, correct? With screw terminals and all the stuff that you'd expect with that kind of product. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So it's the best way to think of it is instead of a hat, for example, that would sit on, I think that's what they're called, sit on top of a Raspberry Pi. It's more like a baseboard that the Raspberry Pi snaps into. And it's really nothing more than, like you said, giving both a physical, more industrial interface, so screw terminals, saddle cage terminals, that type of thing, a more industrial type interface, along with all the protection that you need to hook up something relatively delicate, like a Raspberry Pi, to put it out in a plant, which is a decidedly not delicate environment. There's a lot of nasty stuff going on out there.
So you said from a reliability standpoint that the PLCs are better, which I see the same way, and I would definitely use a PLC if it was an expensive company, because I wouldn't want to trade off reliability versus a little bit of money that the PLC would cost. But what actually makes the PLC more reliable? Is it the hardware or the underlying technology, or is it just the manufacturing quality of the boards?
Man, good question. I would say I don't think it's necessarily the manufacturing of it, although there are things you can do to electronics to make them really robust in an industrial environment. But I think it's the year 2018. I think most companies that want to be serious in the space have a good idea of how to do that or do it properly. So I don't think it's that. I think I really think it goes to installed base and also trust. As silly as it sounds, it's the same reason that companies will choose. I don't know if this is that prevalent anymore, but back in the early 2000s and 90s, my background is in just a brief stint in IT. A lot of companies that I worked with, they chose Microsoft at the time for their server environment over Linux, even though Linux was more stable. I should say is more stable, is more secure. There's a whole bunch of reasons to use Linux, but you can't pick up the phone and call Linus and say, Linus, we're down, come help us, or we've had a breach. It's your fault, Linus. I think a lot of it's just having the support structure there and all the people in the workplace who know how to use it. And then you can call a company and complain and get support. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I guess with Arduino, you've got Arduino, and I guess you couldn't call Massimo. You probably couldn't call him, or is that how you pronounce his name? And worse yet, you definitely couldn't call whatever Chinese company made your $2 Arduino Nano code to come help you.
But you can always ask the internet, which you can't with big industrial companies, because most of their forums are locked in, and you need an account and you need a password. And if you just have a quick question, you don't want to go to your IT department to get an account set up to just access their forums, which I really didn't like.
Oh, so when you worked for a bigger company, your internet was locked down enough that you couldn't access stuff like that?
Like if you SolidWorks, for example, if you have a question about SolidWorks, how to use some feature, the CAD software, you can't just go on the SolidWorks forum and check out their answers and questions that people have asked. You have to have an account, and you only get that account if you have like a corporate license with them.
Yeah, I agree. Some of the CAD software is can be kind of ridiculous, but that's another that's a whole other bag of worms.
They had the licenses and all of that, but just by buying the license doesn't mean that magically the password and the username end up on my desk. So it takes time to access this stuff, and it just makes it unnecessarily complicated, in my opinion, because why lock away the knowledge of how to use the software? I don't see any point.
I have seen that myself. So we're standing there and something will break on the PLC. And I've seen where we'll have to call the PLC company and we'll ask them, hey, we need some support here. And the first thing they'll do, like your CAD company, is ask, okay, who are you? And do you have an account? And second thing they'll say is, do you have a support contract? And if you don't have a support contract, that's when they'll say, all right, until you send us a purchase order for $15,000, sorry. So it's not just SolidWorks. It's other large companies like that. I think that's how they exist. Oh man, our connection's really bad, Jeremy. I can't hear you, and they might have hitmen outside of the hotel here. So yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. The guys in the black van are getting closer now. I don't know.
Looks like a cocktail glass.
Yes. I like the German take on things. It is indeed a cocktail glass. So don't get overly technical about it. The 3ML stands for 3 martini lunch. So harkens back to the days of old when apparently people did that in business. I can assure you they don't do it now, which is both fortunate and unfortunate, right?
but the cocktail glass is also grounded, right?
That's right. It's very important. Make sure you ground it for safety.
You stop drinking because it's standing on the ground.
That's correct. Yes. At least several hours. So yes.
That's what they did in The Wolf of Wall Street in at the beginning. What they're having,
of course, yeah. Absolutely. Well, as an aside, I think because I sit on both sides of the fence, I deal with both engineering and also the commercial people, the salespeople, and I can assure you that engineering thinks that sales that is precisely what we do every day. So there's no qualms about it, right?
Yeah, I never had any engineers talk good about the salespeople.
That's all right. I've heard the same about the engineers, unfortunately,
Yeah.
from the salespeople.
Yeah, I think that's true. I will say though, John, I think the tax laws here aren't too bad. It's really easy. I just put all my stuff in a folder, and then I hand my accountant some money and he gives them back to me and says how much I need to pay for or not pay.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, lunch is the great currency. You can solve a lot of issues
I
with
didn't
lunch. That's for sure.
think anything was too offensive.
Yeah. I mean, man, that's a whole nother
I wasn't here
podcast,
for
but
part of it,
just from
so I don't
the
know.
standpoint of sales. And I think Europe has it right in this regard. For we deal a lot with European companies, the ones that we work with and represent. And their salespeople, at least from what I can tell, working with them over there, they're engineers first and salespeople second. And I do believe that's the way we're going to have to go here in the U.S. as things move forward. Because, I mean, again, I won't go off on a tangent, but the only remark I'll make on that is anybody can go on the internet and get information. If somebody shows up and they know less than the person that they're talking to, why are they there? I mean, you really need to be as much an engineer as a salesperson, for sure.
Well, how did you even start from having no product to getting to a point where you had a product and you were selling it?
Well, that's a great question. Yeah, so I guess just a quick story of this whole thing. My background, primarily before getting involved in the business, was the business being Paul Davis Automation. Obviously, a family business. I bought it from my parents about 10 years ago. I had been in software engineering before that, and so I kind of grew up with Linux and everything from JavaScript to C to Python, C++. Take your pick. And I'd gotten into the family business and really focused on that for a while. And when we got that up and running and kind of back on an even keel, had some time to kind of look around and see what was going on. And I noticed all this really interesting stuff going on with these single board computers, Raspberry Pi, BeagleBone, Arduino, and all the interesting things happening in the makerspace. And I had this thought about 4 years ago, talking to the students I knew in university and the young controls engineers, young electrical engineers that I was working with as Paul Davis Automation customers. I thought, at some point, this stuff that these kids are learning on in school, they're going to bring it with them to the manufacturing space. And at the same time, I had a couple of projects come through. We were dabbling in system integration and trying to go further afield outside of just the sales business. Where I had people ask me, hey, instead of using a PLC here, I'd like to use a Raspberry Pi or I'd like to use an Arduino. Can you make that happen? So we looked around and found that there was no hardware that really took any of those, Arduino, Raspberry Pi, BeagleBone, whatever, and protected against an industrial environment. So at that time, being primarily a software engineer, I really had no experience in electronics. I really just kind of taught myself and started with I don't know if you're familiar with Chris Gamel's contextual electronics, kind of a shout out to him, but started with that program and fast forward 4 years and I get a phone call out of the blue from Arrow Electronics. And they basically tell me everything I just told you about how they see the exact same thing happening, people getting out of school, using this stuff in what they call a pro maker environment. And there we are. So, yeah, really from nothing to getting our first product in the Arrow catalog, and we're crossing our fingers. We ship it out in about a week or so up to Arrow, so we'll see what happens.
So I guess you have a distributor for this?
It's like any vendor distributor agreement. There's I'm not sure how much I should say or could say, but yeah, I mean, you want them to sell all of it, and it's very fair in how the agreement was made, and they do put forth a lot of effort in marketing. So they've got a marketing department that is very eager to help the product move. So yeah, I mean, there's some buyback provisions and that type of thing, but that's very standard in this type of arrangement. Arrow's not doing anything out of the ordinary there for sure.
Well, it's always a risk for both sides. They could buy a product that is really bad quality or really doesn't sell well, doesn't have the right properties for the market. and you on the other side have to give them the products and hope that they're actually going to sell them and not just store them somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, it does no side any good if the product sits in a warehouse and doesn't turn. And just I flop back and forth with my engineer hat and my salesperson hat. But from a business standpoint, I totally understand why any distributor would do that. I mean, they exist on a cash flow basis. They have to turn product over, so they give it a very fair amount of time, a very long time, before they have to start talking about some type of buyback. But ultimately, I mean, yeah, that would be the best situation. If they see the product is turning, they'll increase their minimum order quantities, which helps us out. We become more profitable and we sell more product, and it's good for everybody.
So that's interesting. How did you find a manufacturer for these boards?
Oh, man. It was a hard process. So bear in mind that I'm new to all this. So my experience,
like anybody would be if you launch a new product.
Yeah, seriously. And I had never worked for a larger company in a electrical engineer capacity, so I didn't even have some body of knowledge to fall back on. So I had considered. So it was a relatively small run to limit my risk and to limit Arrow's risk. We're doing a small run off the bat and see how it sells, and then we can always ramp up from there. So I had considered going offshore to China, like anybody would, for the first production run, but I'm really uncomfortable with that. I've never sent something overseas to Asia to be manufactured, and being new to both electronics manufacturing as well as now outsourcing, I felt that there was a lot of risk with that. And from the manufacturer's representative business, Paul Davis Automation, the sales business, I knew that contract manufacturers existed in Cleveland. And in fact, I had called on them just over the years, the decade I've been doing this for random business stuff. And honestly, I had 3 or 4 that I had previous contact with. I called up their mainline sales number, like any new customer would, and said, "Hey, this is what I have. Would you be interested in doing it?" And the one I settled on, they were very professional. They treat me like a much bigger customer than I am. Their price was good. Their facility's beautiful, and I took a tour and basically said, "All right, you guys have the business."
What I always do when I have new parts that I need to make, I always try to just send off requests to 15 different companies, literally 15 companies. And you always get such a wide range, or I at least get such a wide range of quotes from, could be 2,000, could be 10,000. I even had a guy in Poland who quoted $20,000 euros for the same batch of components.
Whoa.
And then I just pick, obviously the cheapest or the one that I trust most if 2 are at a similar price level. But it's amazing how differently companies quote the same exact parts.
It is crazy, isn't it? It makes you wonder whether, I've run across companies before where they just don't want business. They feel like they have to quote something, but they'll quote you a price. And they're like, "Hey, if we get it, that'll be a great payday.
Yeah.
But we really don't want your business."
Yeah.
I've definitely run across that before.
Jeremy's gone.
Well, while we're waiting for Jeremy to come back online, what do you do, Max? I shouldn't have asked before. I should have asked before. I apologize.
I make drawer slides for caravans. I'll show you the website.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, well, it's always a trade-off. At the beginning, I made them just myself in my workshop, and
wow.
1, 2, or 3 that was good enough, but I didn't make a lot of money on them. But now, like, if I hit 100 per order, I get decent prices.
Sure.
100 unit. But it's always so difficult, approaching a company. Most of them have, giant customers, and they don't really care about an order for 500 euros.
Yeah, it's big for you, but it's not big for them at all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow, these are really cool. I'm looking at some of the use pictures you have here, and what a good idea. So how did you come up with this?
My dad wanted something like this for his caravan. He wanted a drawer system. He didn't want to climb into the garage. Like at the back of the caravan, there's this big opening, which is called the garage. And he didn't want to have to climb in there to reach stuff. So he wanted drawers that go on the outside. And there wasn't a product out there that sold really long, lightweight drawers. So I just built one, and I didn't like my job at the time, so that was a perfect excuse to quit and start my own thing.
Yeah, no kidding. Are you a mechanical engineer, or what's your background?
Yeah, product design engineer. It's a mix
Okay.
of mechanical and industrial design. Yeah. And what I found, what the best marketing for me is just the Google AdWords. I pay
Yeah.
400 euros a month for ads on Google, and that's all the marketing I do. And it's so effective and hassle-free because I don't have to talk to anybody. I don't have to call any companies. The customers just come straight to my website.
That is interesting. We had dabbled in Google AdWords for another business that's non-related to electronics that I'm involved in, just by resale on the internet. And we were spending a lot more than that, but it's a much, much smaller niche. And ultimately, we decided to go a different route with our marketing money. But I don't think it was Google's fault. I mean, what we were selling into was a very, very small niche, and I don't think it was effective for that. But I could see how it would be effective for this. I can't wait to try it out with something like, with 3ML or maybe another business if it works. But 400 euros, that's a great return on investment. Wow.
Yeah, because and it's so easy, you know. I don't have to print flyers and drive somewhere, and wherever I go for like a little trade show, I have to spend a fortune and spend a lot of time. And this way, I get direct
Sure.
customers, which is the best because I make like 30 to 40% extra on every sold item. So
Heck yeah.
yeah, I
Absolutely.
I never believed that Google Ads would work because I never click on them, never, ever. Yeah,
People do,
everybody
apparently.
clicks
It's
on these
crazy.
links.
So is the body of this looks like it's made out of something we see a lot in the industrial world. It's extruded aluminum, it looks
yeah.
like. Okay. Like aluminum profile, I think is actually the technical name
Yeah,
for it.
they call it 80/20 profiles in
Oh,
in
yeah.
America.
And we've seen a lot of German imports too. I know Item is a big
Yeah.
one, and Bosch, of course, is big. There's one out of Austria. Robotworks, I think, is the Austrian company
I
I've
don't know
seen as
them,
well.
but Item, they wanted for the profiles I used, they wanted the cheapest they want to offer was I think 9 euros per meter, and I get it for
Okay.
2 meters. 2 meters flat, 199 per meter. From
Whoa.
just some
Whoa.
company that buys the same stuff in China, ships it over here, so they've got the reliability about the steel and all of that, or the alloy. But it's just much cheaper, and what a company.
Yes. Oh yeah. We've had actually significant dealings here with Item in the U.S. and yes, they are a company. That is for
It's
sure.
super expensive. It's not
I
even
can
good
confirm
stuff.
that.
I don't even like the stuff, and I won't use it anymore because now I discovered that laser parts are so cheap. Suddenly, they can
yeah.
laser 2 millimeter aluminium, and I get the same stuff, but it's completely done. I don't have to machine any on it. I don't have to drill a hole or cut it off. It just comes, and it's good to use. So yeah, that's what I'm going for now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Do you have machining capability in your shop, or I guess what all do you have to do? Is it just assembly when you
Yeah,
get it in?
I assemble them. I have 2 people that assemble them with me. Oh, I can't even send Jeremy the email. He asked me if he should restart, but okay, it's gone now. I hope he comes back. Yeah, the profiles at the moment, I just cut them to length. Then I thread the ends just with the cordless drill, and then I start assembling. That's all the machining I do. Oh, and I drill one hole with the CNC. So clamp it in the CNC, press enter. It starts cutting, then take it out again, and that's it. But yeah, on the next 100 batch, I will just get laser parts.
Oh sure, it makes it so much easier.
Oh yeah, these item profiles, they're a pain because there's just no way to connect them cheaply as well.
No, we had a long, long time ago. One of the So I had mentioned I took over the family business. I bought it for my parents. They retired, and that was about 10 years ago. Prior to that, this was maybe 20 years ago. They had dabbled in a small manufacturing company where they were using aluminum profile like this to make safety guarding for machines. And I remember we had a machine shop and everything else where, and I would help out when I was a kid, where we'd have to figure out how to attach this stuff to each other. And we did this same thing. It was trying to figure out strong ways if you couldn't use T-nuts for whatever reason to get this stuff to work up. And yeah, we did a lot of machining on that stuff. I definitely understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, these T-nuts. I buy them in China, but they sent me a batch that's just really horrible. I have to file every single one. I have to file down a little bit to get to fit. But I bought 2,000 and I don't want to throw them away, so I just file every single one.
Yeah, how is it owning a small business in the EU? I don't have much interaction with small business owners. Everybody I deal with from the EU seems to be these giant companies. Is it easy? Is it hard? I guess how is
Well,
it?
it's hard. Definitely, any business is hard. I think if it's your own.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
yeah, I mean, tax wise, it's okay. I pay normal taxes. I don't get any incentives or anything like that. And yeah, well, I think this is the only product that I could really do without a big financial risk. I looked at a lot of ideas,
Yeah.
but this was the only one I could, start with very little money. Not that I didn't earn enough, but just I didn't want to risk like 50 grand to start a business.
Sure.
Because it could just as well go wrong, or I come across some hindrance, like somebody has a patent on this, and then it's all for nothing.
It's convoluted in the U.S. when it comes to the tax law, because I think our tax laws are a lot more complicated. I could be very wrong about that because I don't know, but from what I understand, just talking to other EU members, we can get a lot of benefit if you hire a tax person and know how to take advantage of the loopholes and all that. But it's a massive pain. It's a huge pain. I always tell people if they want to work 80 hours a week but really enjoy it while they're doing it, start your own business. If you want to work 40 hours a week and have a nice weekend, maybe work for somebody else. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. I will say though, John, I think the tax laws here aren't too bad. It's really easy. I just put all my stuff in a folder, and then I hand my accountant some money and he gives them back to me and says how much I need to pay for or not pay.
That's exactly the same here. Yeah. What I found out really early here with the taxes in Germany, there is no way of not paying them really. Like you can go this route, but then they get the taxes in the other way, or you can go this route and then they collect the taxes here. So whatever you do, you still end up paying the taxes unless you start a company somewhere on the Cayman Islands.
Yeah, and I think it's much the same way here. I mean, it's death and taxes, right? The only two certainties in life. I think the difference is, and I've had one instance comes to mind of a younger friend of mine who started his own business. In his first year, he said, "Oh my gosh, I paid all of my, like every last cent of my profit to taxes this year. Like I came out the end of the year and my net income was below the poverty level." I said, "Well, do you have an accountant?" He said, "No, I just did it myself." I said, "Well, okay, that's your issue." And he said, "Well, you still have to pay your taxes, right?" And I said, "Of course, you always pay your taxes, but." And this goes back to my comment about the complication of the U.S. tax code. As a business owner, there are people that you will pay money who they will find a way to maximize your investment, and there can be certain write-offs, and there can be stuff you can defer into the next year, and you can, this, that, and the other thing, timing of income, and all that stuff. And you pay your accountant $1,500, and they take care of that, and all of a sudden you find out you have a lot more money in your pocket at the end of the year. So. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you don't have to deal with the taxes, because I think that's the worst part of the job, dealing with anything that's accounting.
Yes. Yeah, I hate it. my accountant, he has a little cartoon on his desk. It says, it's like a guy with a sandwich board, like he's begging for money. It says, "I did my own taxes." So give me some money.
Oh my gosh, that's so true.
Yeah. I haven't done mine in many years, which I feel like I should be able to as an engineer. You think, okay, I could figure this out, but the return on investment just isn't there to figure out everything involved in what they can do.
What I send to my accountant is just the bills. So the bill comes in, it says like 200 euros, and then it says the VAT, and all he does is open that file, read off that number, the $200, and the VAT, puts it into his software, and then at the end of the day, he does whatever he has to do with the how's the bureau called, the tax division, that office. And I feel like, how boring is that, looking at bills all day long and just writing down these two numbers?
I think it sounds like a horrible, they get paid well. It's a good profession, but I personally wouldn't want to do it. Some people, I guess, enjoy it, but it's not really my cup of tea, as they say.
No way. And these are smart people, really smart people, and they just have to write down these numbers.
Well, it's probably like when we go talk to people and we're like, hey, we found this bearing material that is absolutely incredible. You wouldn't believe it at all these temperature ranges and all that. It is like the next best, blah, blah, and we go on and on about, a MOSFET or a bearing material or whatever, right? And they're probably looking at us going, that is the most boring thing. How does that person do that every day? It's incredible.
Sure.
Yeah, but that stuff's interesting, though. That's what people don't understand.
Yep. It's I was.
And
go ahead, Max. I'm sorry.
Since I do manufacturing, all my builds are, I have few builds, but they're large. So like I buy aluminium for a few thousand, and that's one bill. I wonder how small businesses do it that buy small stuff every day, like restaurants. Every time you go to the grocer to buy some cucumbers, somebody has to type in these numbers into a computer.
Maybe I can answer that a little bit, because I buy a lot of random small stuff for my business. And I guess it's like everything else. I put everything on my credit card or my business debit card, and then I hand it to my accountant, just like you. No, but I mean, if it's a business expense, okay, that's not part of your profit. It's a pretty simple. I imagine it's a pretty simple calculation. I guess I don't really know.
Yeah,
but that's that's
but our
$20 that you
they
didn't.
need the bill. They need the receipt. They have to look at every single receipt. They can't just take your credit card information.
Yeah,
well, I don't know. I give my accountant what he wants, and he tells me something else. That's probably not a good thing to admit. I guess he could tell me anything he wanted at this point. So I don't think he listens to our podcast.
No, I always finished phone calls with him with like, yeah, sorry that you have to do that.
I think I'm much in the same boat as Jeremy, and I have bugged my accountant a little bit about this. Maybe it's my way of getting back at him when he insists on explaining to me the tax code for 20 minutes. So I get him back by asking him little questions about what he does. But I think I know what he does is he broadly categorizes these items into. Well, let me back up. From the tax code standpoint, he's only concerned about, and therefore I should only be concerned about what is tax deductible and what's not, right? So you have to make the books balanced at the end of the year. So that's important, just so you keep a good ledger. But the other side of it is, and broadly, all my expenditures get lumped into, all right, is it something that is going to influence your taxes, or is it not? And then from there, it's okay, what is it? Is it software? Is it hardware? Is it for resale? Is it not for resale? And then once it gets below that level, it's not really, is it cost of goods sold or not? It's not really that well defined. It's not that granular. I don't know. I'm not sure if it's the same way in Germany or not.
I have no idea what he does. I really don't. I think most of the stuff he does is he deals with the agency, the government agency that deals with the taxes, and they send weird letters like. Your application was denied. It says your application was denied, and I'm like, what do they mean by this? And they said like, oh yeah, you used to have to report every month, and now you just have to report every fourth month. So we tried to report after the third month, and they said, yeah, you don't really need to do that. Every fourth month is okay. But instead of just saying that, they said, yeah, application denied. They speak a different language, and I think he speaks it, so it's nice that I don't have to deal with it. I don't have to deal with taxes. I really don't. All I need to know is that I need to keep a healthy margin, like maybe four times the cost that you have should be your retail price, and then I'm good to go.
I think ultimately that's what it comes down to, right? And the most important thing about the business is, are you selling product, and are you selling it at a profit? And if you are, you can solve a whole lot of problems that way. A lot of things just disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you just throw money at it, right? That's how business works.
Yes, to all the engineers out there, so we have explained business in a nutshell. Throw money at the problem until it goes away. Business School 101, done.
Nice. Now, John, let's say, you've made the leap from, I guess, being in a medium-sized company to starting your own company, selling stuff at a smaller level, and then it seems like, now you're, I guess, taking that to a slightly higher level, hopefully a very much higher level. How would somebody, if they wanted to get started in that, what would you say the first step, or maybe two steps, is? If I wanted to go from Maker to Maker Pro, I guess. What do you think that is?
Sure. Well, I'd be interested in Max's take on this too, because I think him and I, in similar type of roles, although he's definitely further down the path. The biggest issue I see with people wanting to go out on their own is that they don't. Either it's they want to come up with a perfect business plan, or they think it's out of their reach and they can't do it. And that is further from the truth, or couldn't be further from the truth, especially nowadays. I mean, for a relatively small amount of money, I set up a small electronics development lab in my basement, complete with a reflow oven and everything else. And certainly, I mean, it wasn't thousands of dollars. It was maybe a couple $1,000, and I had enough capability to do most anything with electronics, unless it was something very complicated, which I wasn't getting involved in. I went on the internet and learned everything I need to do. And then from there, I met people who could fill in the gaps and mentor me and teach me of the things I didn't know. And my first product was horrible. The first stab I did at this was an absolute piece of garbage. And 15 iterations later, it's actually a pretty good product. I've had it independently reviewed by engineers who do that type of thing for a living. The design is sound, the design is good, and it's 100% mine. So it's taken 4 years, and anything is going to take time. I mean, that's the other thing. You have to get started now. You can't wait. And then you have to expect to be involved in it for a period of time. Most small business owners that I've met who have started from scratch and worked up to what many would consider a successful business, the magic number seems to be about 10 years. So you got to stick with it through the bad and the good.
Oh, yeah.
And it could be sooner than that. But I mean, it's not something that's going to happen in a year. You're invested for a decade or more. That's what I've seen. How about you, Max?
Yeah, definitely. It's a very long process. You have some really bad days where everything is not working out right, but you just have to stay at it. And I think the most important thing is, if you think, okay, this is the plan, this is what is going to happen. I've got this idea, and then I'm going to sell it, and I'm going to manufacture it, and people are going to buy it, and this is what's going to happen. That's not what's actually going to happen. You think you're going one way, but your business will go exactly a different way. Something that you could never expect, and you will find that the demand is maybe there for a completely different product. Or the manufacturing should go to a completely different place, or your market is completely different. You're targeting the wrong people, and the money is actually somewhere else, and the manufacturing process is something else that you thought you would have at the beginning. That's one thing that I found, that you really can't plan it, and you have to stay at it until you figure out what the right path is for your product or your business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think you guys are both wrong. I think from what you guys have said, it's find a good accountant. That's the number one rule.
Yes. Also find a good accountant. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And obviously, if you start a business, pick something with low competition. You know, I've had friends of mine starting a t-shirt company, and I just think that's the worst possible thing you could do, starting a t-shirt company. There are t-shirts sold everywhere for very cheap. Everybody has cool designs. Where could be your unique selling points with your t-shirts?
But Max, their design was so clever.
Oh yeah.
So nobody's doing it like that.
Yeah, they developed a brand, their own brand. That's just what they did. Nobody knew the brand, obviously, and friends and family bought it. And also the sheer amount of volume you have to buy to sell something with a low profit margin. You know, you have to buy a full container load of t-shirts just to break even. You can't, and you won't start selling a whole container. You will start selling maybe one a month or 5 a month.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Definitely don't do that. I think the other part of it too is that it's easy to underestimate. Well, that's actually a really good point. It's easy to underestimate if you're an engineer, it's easy to underestimate the business side of things. If you're a business person, it's absolutely easy to underestimate the engineering side of things. And we'll pick on accountants. Maybe if you're a professional like an attorney or accountant, you're going to underestimate the manufacturing side of things. There's a lot of risk in starting your own business. And I mean, one of the other things I tell people is, every aspect of what you're going to be doing, even if it is making t-shirts, you really need to go find somebody from every aspect of that, whether as mundane as it sounds, the accountant or a manufacturing person, a screen printer. Go talk to them about how their process works, because the things that you think are easy are going to be incredibly hard, and the things you think are hard are probably going to wind up being easy. So just assume you know nothing is a good place to start.
That's good. It's good stuff.
And for suppliers, definitely keep looking for cheaper options because they're always out there.
But not too cheap, because you need to be able to yell at whatever PLC manufacturer, or at least Arduino. If you can't find the Chinese supplier, then you're just out of luck.
Yeah, I wonder, is there a good Arduino that you can buy? Is the original Arduino more reliable?
Having bought both, I mean, I think some of the I don't know, if you buy an original Arduino Uno, you'll notice some of the markings on it are pretty good. It comes with a few, like, how can I put this? You can tell it's really well done. But is it worth 10 times what a knockoff is? That's your decision, I guess. So, I don't know. I don't want to talk too bad about it because they've really developed quite a amazing ecosystem and stuff. So it's hard to, I don't know. I guess that's the downside of, putting your product out there as open source. People can make knockoffs, and they're really not knockoffs. They're legal to make. So it's, even though you've put a lot of effort and time into the ecosystem and the programming software and such.
How about you, John?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it depends on what you're doing with it. I've used Arduinos in industrial applications before, mainly again for data gathering and that type of thing. I know that temperature is a big thing with electronics and industry, and there aren't going back to Jeremy's example about the Arduino Uno, there's not a huge amount of components on that board, but so you can't skimp on a lot of stuff. I mean, an Atmel processor is still an Atmel processor, whether you get it from, some market in Shenzhen or you buy it from DigiKey, at least in theory. But the other stuff you can skimp on, like capacitor temperature ratings, maybe, those X7R capacitors are pretty expensive. Maybe you can get something cheaper and put it on there. And there's really no way to know because that stuff isn't marked as such, especially all the surface mount stuff. So anyway, that's a long way of saying if I were going to do something for a client, let's say, where I was going to stick an Arduino out in a factory, yeah, I'd probably spend the extra money and get it for an Arduino or get it from Arduino. If I was going to stick something in my mailbox to tell me every time the mailbox was opened, I'll save $10. I'll give it a shot. I mean, why not, right?
Yeah. In my previous project, I broke 3 or 4 Arduinos just by reverse polarity and stuff like that, or shortening it out by accident. So I'm glad I used the really cheap ones for like €3 each.
Well, remember we talked about Sam Battle to Look Mum No Computer. He's like, I bought 100 Arduinos, but like 5 of them were trash.
He bought more. He bought 300.
Whoa!
But he was saying that just a couple of them are trash. Obviously, you just accept that with that type of thing, and maybe you don't with a genuine processor or genuine article. Maybe that's a good segue into at the end of the shows we try to kind of ask what everybody's been working on. So I guess what's this project you're working on, Max?
I'm making a...
Or maybe you can't say.
Yeah, I can't really say too much. It's a camera slider for a customer. That's all I can say. And it runs on Arduino. And I went a different route. I didn't do any of the soldering myself. I bought a RAMS 1.4 board, which is the typical board that you have in any 3D printer. And you can buy these kits really cheap. I think I paid €70 for the board with the display and 3 stepper motors. And the cool thing is, it's all plug and play. I don't have to do any soldering. And if the servo drivers, the stepper drivers, if they break, I can just pop a new one in and it will work again.
Oh, that's great.
Wow.
So now what about you, John? What have you been working on this week or this month?
Oh man! Besides getting the rhubarb out of production and shipped off to Aero, the project right now, which it's been the project for the past year, I just haven't had a huge amount of bandwidth. I came across it's called a gain clone. It was a series of amplifiers based on I don't think it was this chip initially, but it's the same type of chip, like the Texas Instruments LM3886, which is a really high fidelity audio chip, Class D amplifier. and designed an amplifier around that chip that sounds really good in my living room. So right now I have 3 circuit boards, a high power DC rectifier that I built with a transformer with 2 audio channels with everything kind of cobbled together. Sitting on top of my old stereo receiver, which is what you would buy from a store and is nice and safe. And I just tell my kids, like, don't touch that. Whatever you do, don't touch it. But it sounds really good and it's really loud and it's awesome. But just don't touch it because it might kill you. And they're like, okay, Dad, whatever. But
Oh, that's great.
The project.
That's great. They listen to you on this.
Well, sometimes, yeah. But the project right now is to get that all into a really nice enclosure and finish up the control board, which is based on a Teensy that'll control the VU meters and the buttons and all that stuff, and make it considerably more safe so that my kids make it past the age of 7.
What are you going to use for the case?
Well, I'm going to make it. So I'm a woodworker as well, or at least an amateur one. And I think what I'm going to do, is do like a hardwood case and make it look kind of a mid-century modern. Forget the radio I was going to base it off of, but picture like a nice rectangular kind of hardwood case, mid-century type modern receiver box with a brushed aluminum panel on the front of it. So we'll see.
Oh, sounds nice.
Well, in theory, it's not. It hasn't made it out of Fusion yet, Fusion 360. So we'll see.
It always sounds good in your head, right?
Oh man, it sure does. It sure does. How about you, Jeremy? What are you working on?
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing I'm working on, I've had it in my head for a while. It's finally starting to come together. I made this Omni robot with 4 Omni wheels on it. So it's got 4 servos or 4 steppers. And in theory, it should be able to slide left, right, forwards, backwards, and turn and everything. So it should be really neat. I guess the only thing is, once I got it put together, it's like a circle about 12 or exactly 12 inches in diameter. And I was like, I've just created a Roomba, which I guess is. And I was slightly disappointed at that when I found out what I'd made, but they're nice, and Roombas can actually slide left and right. So hopefully people will recognize just how cool that is without me having to explain and bore them with the details. But no, it should be pretty cool. I got some neat plans for it, so hopefully that'll be good.
That's
I
awesome.
hope it will move easier than your Strand Beast.
Yeah, those are very, very, very slow, but they look cool when they move. So
they do, yeah. When
maybe the Strand Beast, maybe one of them will ride on top of this thing, like the cat on the Roomba. It'll be the Strand Beast on the Roomba riding around.
I think you just made, like, that's the birth of a meme right there. That's the next internet sensation.
I definitely hope so. It's you guys heard of it here first, I guess. So
that's right. I really liked your Stacklight project. I think that was one of the neater things that I've seen lately. That was the music response Stacklight, right?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, yeah, that's right. It was really cool. Its original purpose was, I guess, just my head. I knew this would never really work. I guess you got young kids too, John. But it's like I was like, sometimes when I'm working in my office at home, they're a little bit too loud and need me to be quiet. I can just have the Stacklight that it gets up to the top of its limit, and then it starts going like red and blue like the police lights. But naturally, what this means to the young kids is, well, let's see how loud we can get and make sure we can hit the target. And so it was a lot of fun, and I appreciate you saying that. I think it did look really good, but at the same time, it wasn't exactly it didn't exactly work for what
it was originally intended.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So what you're saying is it was a kid sound normalizer. They just normalized their volume to peak all the time, and that's what they did, right?
That's a good way to put it. So yes, if you guys want your kids to scream even more, just make sure to build one of these devices.
Did that thing sample the sound level over a time period?
No, it's like instantaneous sound level. So,
but you should add that maybe. That's what my car does. Like it measures the acceleration and deceleration and the speed over a long period. And the longer you drive, the bigger the chance you have that it actually goes down.
Huh. Oh, as far as the miles per gallon or kilometers per gallon, I guess.
Yeah, because if I
kilometers
accelerate
per liter, I suppose you say over there.
liters per 100 kilometers. That's what
Oh.
we measure. Yeah.
Okay.
But obviously, if I accelerate once, it will tell you, oh, you used a lot of fuel. But then if I drive slowly or more conservative for a few miles, that will just tell me, oh, you're driving conservatively. So it takes the consumption over a longer time period, and then it tells me
Right.
like, oh yeah, you did well, and then I'm like, oh yeah.
Now
Little bit
you
of fun
drive
on the road.
you drive a Mustang, correct, Max?
yeah, American Mustang.
I like you, Max. That's good.
Well, I guess to well, first of all, I guess we need to talk about our a little Patreon deal. So before I close everything out, so
Jeremy,
first of all,
why do we need to take donations from people?
okay, because I guess it costs money to actually host this and stuff, and we're spending our time to do this. But I don't want to say like, oh, you have to say that. We're doing this for free. We enjoy it, but it does cost money.
Why does it cost money? I can download it for free.
Well, that's a good point. Because we have to host it, I guess.
It's the hosting costs money, SoundCloud costs money, Zencaster costs money, and obviously we love doing this, but a little bit of support would be really nice. So we want to thank Stephen Booker, who is our very first Patreon, and we hope he gets a few other people that join him and being one of our Patreons.
Yeah. And actually, one thing about this is what we're going to do is the top 5 Patreons that we have. Every time we do this, we'll actually give them a shout out on the show. So that could be like your name. You could put your company name. You could put some fake name that you've made up. In fact, I was thinking, Max, if you want, I'll do like a demo besides Stephen Booker,
how would that
who
sound
we're
like?
calling him out right now. All right. So just these people I've made up. It's so at the end of the show today, I'd like to thank our Patreons, and thanks to Thomas Smith, Ninja77, Jim's Hot Glue Emporium, Roxy, and Max's Uncle Klaus. What do you think about that? That
Very
sounds
nice.
pretty.
Thank you, Uncle Klaus.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And if you're a big tool company, you can also just send us each a cordless drill, and we'll be happy to name you for the rest of the year.
Right. And we have several levels. I think the top level was $10,000 support. It was the
Okay.
bad return on investment. And,
What
we'd
will
be
we
happy to
use
have
that
that.
money for?
I think, I don't know, maybe I'll fly to Germany and we could do the podcast live, or
Yeah,
we could,
yeah.
So we'll see.
Fly business class, obviously. So it's good use of the money.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Bitcoin. I've heard that's a hot thing.
Bitcoin. Oh,
a sound
Yeah.
investment too. Yeah.
It is a sound investment, just like Tesla.
Oh.
John,
So-
do you drive a Tesla? Did I just...
No, I don't. I'm just saying that I feel sorry for you. The wave of internet Tesla fanboys that are going to come after you both now. Oh man. RIP your email inbox.
People do have a strange loyalty to that. I mean, I shouldn't say strange. They just have a loyalty to that brand. So good for them, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great car, I think. I've really liked it when I've driven one. It was a really great car. I just don't think it's a good investment buying Tesla stuff. But
Also,
I have to say, I just ordered an Elon Musk T-shirt where he smokes a joint, and the smoke that he exhales transverses into a universe, like one of these pictures that the Hubble telescope takes from far universes.
Well,
yeah,
that's
I bought
interesting.
that on Instagram.
Is that your friend's t-shirt company? That was very clever.
No. This is, I think, I don't know the company. I think it was called Oh Dear. It's an American company, I think, and they make all kinds of cool prints. So.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
it's good to hear you're supporting your friend's endeavors.
I think we'll have to talk to our accountants to see, or maybe that person should talk to their accountant to see if they have to pay Mr. Musk a royalty fee of some type.
That's a good question. That's a really good question.
So John, if somebody wants to get in contact with you, or I guess,
Don't get in contact with him. Just buy his products. Where can he buy your?
If somebody wants to buy your products,
Well,
how do they do it?
so if you would like to buy the rhubarb when it's released towards the end of November, arrow.com and search for the rhubarb. I have to believe that has to be a pretty unique search string on arrow.com. They probably don't have a lot of other things named rhubarb. So search for the rhubarb. Or if you want to reach out to me directly, I am John P.R. Davis on Twitter. Which is a mouthful, but JOHN, P as in Papa, R as in Romeo, Davis on Twitter. That's probably the best way to get me. Or you can go to the 3ML website, three-ml.com.
Nice. And what about yourself, Max?
Yeah, well, one thing we didn't mention this whole episode is that both Jeremy and I, we do YouTube videos, each on our own channel. So you find Jeremy at Jeremy S. Cook on YouTube, and myself on it's just the Max Maker channel on YouTube. Yeah, if you want some nice entertainment targeted for engineers and makers, check out our videos.
Yeah. Oh, and last time we discussed how to actually email me, and I just so you know, Max, you can now email info@jeremyscook.com.
Oh, very good.
And it is now an active. I think I registered questions. I registered for some other stuff. So, if you just think of something to email. I don't remember. I think hello@jeremyscook.com. Hi at jeremyscook.com. I think maybe questions. It's just so easy to register a email address when you own a domain name. It's pretty fun, actually.
I don't find it that easy. I've got one domain. I get emails for it, but I don't know who hosts it. I don't know if I pay for this. I can't find anything on my credit card that says I'm still paying for this. So I don't know what's happening there.
Have to talk to your accountant, I guess.
Yeah, thanks, John, for being our guest. And it was very interesting, finding out about the industrial applications for our Maker electronics. And we wish you all the best.
Thank you. And thanks, guys, for having me.
Much.
Yeah, thank you so much.